Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Robert Hall. In this video, we're going to be talking about the Smallrig RC450D, which is a 500 watt daylight COB LED. Now to start off, it comes in the what is very typical gray case. This seems to be accompanying a lot of LEDs lately, including ones from Godox and from Aperture. The case has a medium firm top as well as medium firm sides. It's not exactly a hard shell case, but it's not flimsy either. And on the inside, you have a foam case with cutouts so that everything can stay organized. Inside the case, we've got the light, a very nice all metal stand attachment, power brick and cable, and this light does have the controls on the back of the light, so there is no separate control module, so you've only got one piece outside the light, and a very familiar reflector. Pretty much every LED manufacturer has switched to a similar design. This is a Bowens mount reflector because the Smallrig RC450 is a Bowens mount LED. Now when we take this out of the box, of course we have an LED cover. It's up to you whether you want to keep this on the light as you pack it away. I typically don't, but if you're trying to add extra protection, go ahead. There is a protective layer over the chip, so you don't have to worry that if you don't use this, that your chip can easily get gouged if something bumps into it. This is the included stand attachment. It is so tough to move without the light, which is a good thing because it means your light won't sag. But if you'll notice, there's two nubs on top as well as a very similar to Arca Swiss mounting plate. So when you attach the light to it, it doesn't move at all. But because of those two nubs, that does mean that you have to open up the plate very wide and then set the light into it and then tighten the plate down. It doesn't slide in like a tripod plate would. Now, once the light is on, it's a lot easier to move, but it's still a very firm action. Like, it's very intentional. And the cool thing about that is that even if it's open, you see how it barely slides or very slowly slides forward? So it's not just gonna like flop over because it's wide open. And then as soon as you put just a little bit of resistance, the light is nice and secure. And this is fantastic when it comes to actually locking this light down with a large modifier on it. I found this to be as strong, if not stronger, than some of the beefier rosettes that can be on the side. I might have to buy another one of these mounts and see if I can repurpose it for the 8300 Pro. Power is really simple. You just plug the power cord in here. You'll notice this little red switch, that's a locking switch. So when I press it down, it is now locked and this cannot come out. And if I want to release it, I actually have to pull that switch up before I pull it out. It comes with a safety leash so that you can hang it from a stand. And both ends of the cable have a cable tie as well for organization. An optional accessory is this controller right here. It has a magnetic back so you can attach it to a stand, although I will say it does not attach to these flashpoint stands too well, and I believe that's because the type of steel is more hollow than, say, a Matthews C stand. So depending on what you own, your mileage may vary with that. But this controller attaches via this cable right in the back. And then when your light is up, you can control all of its functions right from this controller rather than bringing the light down to adjust it or using a phone app. There's only one version of this remote, whereas there are multiple versions of the Smallrig LEDs. There are both daylight versions as well as BiColor versions. So even though we have a CCT, which would be color temperature control, right here, it does nothing because we only have the daylight version, which means the things that we can control from here are the intensity as well as the effects. To me, these effects are a little bit underwhelming on an all daylight LED. An LED with RGB built in is way more capable of simulating fireworks, and a BiColor LED is way more capable of simulating a flame or fire effect. So really it's only ones like faulty bulb, TV, paparazzi, and lightning that are effective on a light like this. But with the effects that are on here, we have 10 levels of control of the frequency of each one, so we can alter them a little bit. Now, if you're not interested in adding the controller, we can of course control the light from the back of the light simply by using the knobs that are provided. We've got control of the effects, we've got control of the power output, and we can turn it on and off, and that's really all the functionality of this light. On to color. This is a daylight balanced LED. We would expect around 5600K, and let's see how good it is. Wow. This may be the closest I've ever seen to 5600K. We've got 5598K. We've got absolutely no tint. We've got a CRI of 96.2, which not exactly the highest. I'd say most lights are hitting mid 97s nowadays. but I do have this power dropped quite a bit. Let's try increasing the brightness a little bit and we'll measure it from a little bit further away. CRI actually dropped down to 95.6 at 80% power. And again, 95.6 with the light at 100%. Even at 100%, we've got 5580 Kelvin. So again, extremely close to 5600 Kelvin, but we are down to a 95.6 average CRI rating. And in the R9 spectrum, we're down to an 86.1, which isn't exactly the best. Now you might be watching and thinking, this is relatively underwhelming. I mean, it's not a BiColor or RGB LED light. It doesn't have a significant amount of effects. Its build isn't exactly unique, right? We've seen this type of light before, but there was a claim that piqued my interest, and that is that this will put out 50% more light output than a comparable product. Now, even though it's called the RC450D, this is a 500 watt LED. It draws 500 watts to power it. And so if it had 50% more brightness than a competitor, then it would be on par with a 750 watt draw from another brand. So we're gonna put that to the test. At this distance, we got a lux of 110,000. The Godox got about 58,700. All right, I just threw a bunch of numbers at you and you may not know what those mean, so let me break that down into plain English. Well, first off, with the Smallrig being a 500 watt LED and the Godox VL300 being a 300 watt LED, you would expect the Smallrig to at least be 60% brighter. But it's actually about 90% brighter. So if we ignore the wattage difference between the two lights, that means that the Smallrig is putting about 30% more light output for the same wattage. Now they say 50% on their site against competitors, but we don't know who the competitor is. So I definitely can see this light being 50% brighter than certain LEDs on the market, especially because I've seen Godox go watt for watt a little bit brighter than the competition as well. So I actually picked one of the strongest efficiency contenders to compare this against, and it still outperformed. Now, it does seem about 10% of that is simply because of the reflector design. And I'll be honest, I don't know how this reflector is 10% more efficient than this one, because they look the same. The only difference I can see is that the design of the Smallrig reflector has 11 vertical rows of little squares or panels, whereas the Godox reflector only has 10. Maybe that's a move. Maybe in the future we'll start seeing these with 50 rows because it creates slightly more output. Who knows? The only thing I do know is that a 30% jump in output per watt is massive efficiency. I mean, that's a huge jump in efficiency, and it may seem small, like, oh, I'm only getting a third stop, but that's an incredible jump when everybody is competing on such tight margins to improve on products. It's also important when it comes to considering this light against the competition, because we can't look at this as a 500 watt LED when it's 30% more efficient than the other 500 watt LEDs on the market. 30% more efficiency than the competition at 500 watts means we need to view this light as if it were a 650 watt light, and now all of a sudden we are in the territory of comparing against lights like the Aperture 600, which is far more expensive than this Smallrig at $999. One last thing, because I forgot to do it earlier, I wanted to leave it running right here while I have a lavalier microphone on, just so you can get an idea of the ambient noise. It's very quiet, and I think just a few feet away on a set and it would be almost undetectable. So in conclusion, this light actually impressed me quite a bit. Not necessarily because of its features, because its features aren't all that impressive. Not because of its color, because its color isn't the best out there. But for a 30% gain in power output versus the competition, when everybody else is so close and fighting for 10th stops by updating reflectors, and this just comes out and has 30% more brightness than a equivalent light, that's impressive. And beyond the power, I also think it's impressive that Smallrig was able to develop such a high quality light so quick. If you've followed Smallrig for a while, you know that they're a grip company. They make amazing little pieces of grip that nobody else makes, and they do it affordably, but they've never been known as a lighting company. So for them to enter the lighting market and actually quickly put out a product that is going to push the entire market forward in terms of competition, I think that's something to be applauded. All right guys, I hope you enjoyed this look at the Smallrig RC450. If there was anything that I missed, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and got all the details that you were looking for. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, and I'll catch you in the next one.